Hello and welcome to Budget Consultants YouTube channel where we discuss construction costs and planning in Jamaica. If you're planning to build and want to understand construction costs, then this channel is for you. In today's video, I will be doing a review of the process that a person should be aware of whenever they think of getting construction related funding from the NHT. Now, one of my reasons for doing these videos is that I continuously have to have the same discussions with persons that I consult with, and I want to ensure that I can use a video reference to eliminate me repeating the same information over and over. Now, one thing that is common amongst persons who are of middle or lower income is that they often refer to the NHT as one of their sources of financing, on the basis that the average person is mandated to pay the NHT a portion of their salary every month. So usually you are automatically qualified for some benefits from your payments are going in. So based on you being qualified and the fact that the NHT has one of the lowest interest rates when it comes down to mortgages or construction loans, persons often want to take advantage of it. Though it is attractive for the average person, it is not an easy and straightforward process. It's something that can actually be very stressful if your expectations are too high. Now, one common thing that I always say to people is that regardless of the NHT being an organization that was created with the idea of providing housing solutions for the average Jamaican, the fact of the matter is that it is a financial organization. The biggest difference with the NHT and the bank is that the bank is privately owned and the NHT is publicly owned. So methods that the bank can employ, the NHT will not employ these methods as easily because it has to weigh in mind the image that it presents to the public. But regardless of that, most of the processes are going to follow a similar pattern. So if the NHT is lending you money, there's always going to be some thought of how do they recover the money. And likewise, how are you going to spend the money that they are providing to you? So there's always going to be red tapes and different means of checks and balances that they are going to do to assure that the money that they present to a customer is secured in the form of a structure or a piece of land. So the idea in a lot of persons' head that they are going to get this funding anyway is a myth that has not been proven. If the NHT tells you that you're going to get $7.5 million and it is even construction related, this money will be dispersed in a way that allows for a certain level of security. So it will never be the $7 million at once given to a customer. It's always going to be in fractions to ensure that they can come and check that what the money is intended to do is being done. Now, why I mention that point, oftentimes a customer will go to the NHT and they will talk to somebody in the admin staff area, and the admin staff will give the impression that they are just going to get a lump sum payment from the NHT. And then you are having a consultation with a customer and you have to be telling them that the logic doesn't make any sense. Why would the organization just give you a certain sum of money and not have a way of recovering that fund? That is basically saying that everybody that's at the head of the NHT is stupid and you are the only smart person in the country. So a lot of persons need to temper their expectations whenever they are approaching this process, because if you go in with the wrong expectation, it will only cause you distress when you find out that every way that you think that the organization works is going to be contrary to how you'd want them to operate. Now, separate and apart from that, I'm going to talk about some facts that you are supposed to familiarize yourself with whenever you're expecting to access one of these loans. Now, one of the first things is that you have to know the kind of documentation that the NHT will require. And these documentations will follow a similar path to the average bank. They're going to ask you for proof of ownership of a property, that is, a property that has a certificate of title with your name on it and has no level of restrictions by any court order, etc. They are also going to ask for a surveyor's ID report, which is less than a year old. Now, this surveyor ID, if you start the application and it is valid and the application goes over a time period where the surveyor gets expired before the loan is fully approved and dispersed, then you are going to be asked to do a second survey ID report. The next thing that they're going to ask you to do is a valuation report. Similar to the bank, they're going to ask you to do a valuation report of the property. And many times these valuations may include the initial value of the property and the potential value of the property after the structure is added. Now, after the valuation report, they're going to ask that you have an approved architectural drawing from the parish council that the property is located in. This architectural drawing cannot be older than 2 years old. After that, they are going to ask you for a bill of quantity to represent the sum of money that they are going to be financing. So if you have a drawing that's representing 6 bedrooms and the NHT is going to fund you, and they are of the opinion that the money that they are financing you can do only 1 bedroom, they will need a bill of quantity specific to what they are funding. They don't care about how you are going to do the other 5 bedrooms. They want to ensure that when we give you this money, 1 bedroom is completed. Now, the reason for doing that, they have to have an exit strategy. Exit strategy being, when we give you the money and you have 1 bedroom there on the property, if you cannot finance your mortgage and we are forced to repossess this property and put it on the market, the money that we are giving you is equivalent to what the average 1 bedroom is being sold for, and you would have a completed 1 bedroom. If they were to allot the money and did not specify, and you have an unfinished house on the property, the first thing with valuators is that they are never going to value unfinished houses in alignment with what has been spent on the building. It's always going to be below market value. So for the NHT or for any financial organization, there's no benefit in putting their money in a structure that's not going to be finished, because there's no path by which they can use to easily recover their funds in the case that you do not want to pay your mortgage anymore. So another document that they're going to ask you is for you to get a pro forma invoice from a local hardware to represent a sum similar to what they're going to disburse you first. Now, the first disbursement commonly is going to be about 20% of whatever money that you're going to be getting for the construction loan. And that is going to have to be reflected by the hardware to say what kind of material will be purchased with this first disbursement. Now, the first disbursement is expected to be material only. So for all the persons who want to do these NHT homes and they don't have any money in their pocket, they often have a problem, because the NHT's first disbursement is material only. You have to do labor work first and then you're going to get paid. So you must have some funds in your pocket to offset the labor until the NHT reimburses you. A final thing that you're often going to be required to do if you're doing a house from scratch is a surveyor's confirmation report, which is that usually you're going to be told to line out the house and have a surveyor come and confirm that the property is not going to be breaching. Now, this confirmation is a typical financial go-to, and that is, if the building that we have provided you funding for is in breach, then it's going to lose its value, because automatically a breach building will not be taken up by a financial organization. So if they were to repossess your home and to resell it, it's going to be harder for them if it is in breach. So in terms of documentation, those are things that you have to consider. When it comes down to the approval process, one has to bear in mind that the branch that you're going to get your funding at the NHT many times is not going to be the final branch that is actually processing your loan. So it is quite possible for you to walk in to the NHT in Montego Bay and they confirm to you that you can get, let us say, $5 million. And you would think that the approval is just going to be fully processed in Montego Bay, but it is not. When you give in your documents, there's usually going to have to be a certain level of approval that's going to have to be done at the head branch. And this will include the legal part of the loan process, a review of the quantities that have been presented for the cost of your potential project, and for them to process the loan application and have it imprinted on your title. So the approval is not just at the branch. As much as they will tell you that you're approved, one of the things you have to know is that the average admin staff does not have the requisite information to properly advise you. So if you want a realistic timeline to put aside for this NHT process, I would often say to a person that they want to think of within 6 to 12 months at bare minimum to get your loan fully approved and disbursed to you. That is approved and the payment is processed and sent to your bank account. Now, what you're going to get from the NHT that contradicts that timing that I'm making mention of is that they're going to say it's within 3 to 6 months. But I've been keeping data on these kind of processes for a while and guarantee you that the trust is not that efficient that you're going to easily get through within 3 to 6 months. And one thing to consider is the fact that because you're going to have to get an approved drawing, the process has to start from when the drawing is submitted. And the average parish council is going to take within 30 to 90 days to fully approve your architectural drawing. And after it's approved, you're still going to have to wait 14 to 28 days to get the stamped copy to go to the NHT with. So just the drawing process on average is going to take you almost 2 months. So in your mind, you look at it that if NHT is going to take another 3 to 6 months, then in less than a year, you're going to get approval. But like I said, I have more than one customer that I can refer you to that did everything that was specified, and they still had to wait within 6 months to a year many times to access their first disbursement of the loan. To allow the NHT to do their checks and balances when it comes down to how you are using the money that they are dispersing to you, they are going to assign a project officer to actually check on your project as the project is progressing. Now, one thing I often advise the average person is do not have your expectations too high. The expectation of the average person is that the project officer is going to help them throughout the process of getting this construction done so they don't have a hard time. But that's not how the project officers are going to work. The average project officer on an NHT project is many times only going to meet with you at the point that you're about to start the project and only at points that you are requesting additional funding. So it's not a case that they're going to walk you through the process to make it easier for you. The project officer is not a consultant. The project officer is paid by the NHT to secure the NHT's interest in the project. So any excess amount of support that you're expecting from the NHT officer, you can take it out of your mind. Now the next point that I want to go on is a matter of how the NHT reviews project costs. And many of the times this is not going to be told to you until you're midway or almost at the end of the NHT process and you're getting a hard time. How the NHT project officers look at project related costs is related to projections. In other words, cost per square feet. So oftentimes you're going to go to an NHT officer, they are going to be getting advice from their head branch as to what the expected rate of construction should be. So they might say to you that the expected cost per construction is, let us say, $10,000 per square feet. But though these officers will give you a cost as the projected construction related rate, they themselves cannot justify how this $10,000 is arrived at. What many times they're going to be doing is that they're going to be looking at different bill of quantities which have been submitted to the NHT and using those as their reference. So if a person actually miscalculates or use reduced rates to get work done, but the report aligns itself with the cost that they are expecting, then they are going to process the loan just the same. So to clearly demonstrate how this scenario would work, $10,000 per square feet is just saying the equivalent of $1 million for every 10 by 10 area. So if you did a bedroom which is 10 by 10, they are going to expect that it's $1 million. So if you had, let us say, $3 million being given to you, and you have a bedroom that's say 20 by 10, which is 200 square feet, that's excluding the walls. Then you have a bathroom and a closet, which is occupying a space of 5 by 20, which is another 100 square feet. That would be saying the addition of those 2 square feet, which is 200 plus 100 equals 300, and they would say 300 multiplied by the $10,000 per square feet is equivalent to the $3 million that you're being financed. Now, regardless of you saying that you're doing your own checks and balances, they will not accept a structure which is greater than that coverage area that is being calculated. You could have 10 more rooms in the back. They are not going to look at them. They are looking at that area. The problem with this is that though they are giving a projections, the NHT officer is not going to get involved in the costs that workmen will be asking for. And the bill of quantity that is required does not separate material from labor in this instance. So you, the homeowner with no building knowledge, is now going to be required to find some magical way to have the construction done to match exactly what their projections are. Now, one of the things that become very confusing is that as you are requesting additional funding, they're going to ask you how much material you have on the site. And I don't see how that makes any sense, because at the end of the day, they are not asking you for a bill of quantity that is separating material from labor to get some level of accountability. They are actually asking you to use a document that a contractor would use, and the average customer is not a contractor. So you by yourself won't be able to decode these documents. So it's gonna be a big headache as you're trying to get the construction process completed. Now, in terms of red tape, one of the things that they will often do is that if you find that the money that you are spending with workmen and purchasing material is not completing what they are expecting, then they have the possibility of suspending financing until you can reach up to the level that the funding is scheduled to carry to. Now, a common mistake that the average customer makes in the expectation is that they think that the construction rates out in the general market is what the NHT is expecting to pay relative to labor. And that is a big misconception. The NHT is expecting that you're getting construction at the level of the master builder's rate. But the problem is, to get construction done at those rates, oftentimes you have to have a contractor. But $10,000 per square feet cannot pay a contractor to complete a construction project. So by process of elimination, $10,000 force you not to use a contractor. But yet the rates that they are expecting that you're paying workmen is falling in alignment with what a contractor would pay his or her workmen. Also, the NHT is expecting that you, as a homeowner who might not be associated with construction, have the equivalent knowledge of a contractor to engage workmen on your own, which has been proven to be a big problem when it comes down to most construction-related activities. The final thing I want to touch on relative to the NHT is related to the disbursement of funds. Now, they would often say to you that after the project officer has done their report, you would get funding 2 weeks after the NHT officer has done their visit. But the visit and the report is two different things. The NHT officer may come to your property this week, but that doesn't mean that he's sending in a report and a request for funding the same week. So you have to have in your mind a minimum of a month from the point of you making the request at the NHT to the point of getting the additional funding. So that's why I always say to customers, always have a little bit of money in your own pocket whenever you are going to engage workmen to do construction related activities. Because the money that the NHT is going to provide you is not going to allow you to get construction work done at the same cost, and it will be continuously delayed, which can cause you to lose all the workmen that you have, and in some cases put you in a position that you're unable to get new workmen, because workmen will think to themselves that the NHT has given you funding for you to pay them, but you're not paying them. So I often say to customers, have a savings of a minimum of $250,000 to $500,000 whenever you're going to the NHT construction loan process. That will help to offset a few of the expenses that would become immediate whenever you are working with workmen. And you have to have a good sense of what is done on your bill of quantities, because the bill of quantity, as I said in previous videos, the average customer will not be able to fully understand them. They will see a few terminologies, but the average customer cannot decode them. And even the workmen that are going to give you material lists, they themselves often leave off a lot of material. So the NHT process is a process that is already inefficient. You want to limit the amount of headaches that are going to come with it, because otherwise you'll find that you're getting a little bit of money and you're even forced to start repaying money related to the funding that they are giving you, but yet you cannot complete the structure because the project is drawn out by different unexpected events.